Hello, I am Nick Sherity, and I'm going to be talking about discrimination, the problem of misinformation, and societal functions. So, you may or may not be wondering what discrimination is. Well, discrimination is defined as the unjust or prejudicial treatment of different categories of people or things. So, the main groups of people that get discriminated against are people of a different skin color, people in the LGBTQ community, being people that are lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer/questioning, and even people of the opposite gender, with being most often women. As you probably tell, discrimination applies to a massive group of people in America. This means that a large percent of people in the United States can and are experiencing discrimination on an almost daily basis. So you may be wondering, what are some real examples of discrimination in a more real world setting? Well, a new KFF poll finds that the vast majority, 71%, of African Americans say they've experienced some form of racial discrimination or mistreatment during their lifetime, including nearly 48% who say at one point that they felt their life was in danger just because of their race. This leads to problems with things such as stress, which as a result of racism can also lead to behaviors that can cause further risk to physical health. Researchers have found discrimination is linked to a higher rate of smoking, which leads to problems such as cancer, heart disease, smoke, strokes, lung disease, and other problems. It also leads to alcohol use and drug use, which normally leads to dependency and addiction, and unhealthy eating habits, leading to rapid weight gain, which can lead to further problems in the future. And when it comes to LGBTQ people, when we view some of these statistics from Case Western Reserve University, we actually learn a lot about how discrimination is just a part of these people's lives. With a percentage of 84% of the respondents identifying as LGBT, 16% of respondents identifying as heterosexual or uncertain. From this group, we learned that more than one-third, 36% of LGBT undergraduate students have experienced harassment within the past year, as of 29% of all respondents overall. 20% of all respondents feared for their physical safety because of their sexual orientation or gender identity, and 51% concealed their sexual orientation or gender identity to avoid intimidation or things that are worse. And 43% of respondents rated the overall campus climate as homophobic. Another thing that we learned is that LGBTQ people are over 5 times more likely to have attempted suicide in the past year, over 3 times more likely to have skipped school in the past month because they felt unsafe at or even en route to school, and over 3 times more likely to have been threatened or injured with a weapon at school in the past year. Discrimination can also be used on people of the opposite gender, like what we learn in this law article reviewed by Taylor D. Rubig of Foreign and Rubik Attorney, where gender discrimination normally comes in the form of sexual harassment. And sexual harassment usually comes in the form of prejudice, treatment, and hiring or firing processes on account of gender, being cast over for a promotion on account of gender, also known as the glass ceiling, being subject to unwanted sexual advances, requests for sexual favors, and or other forms of sexual harassment, and being the subject of derogatory language and slurs on account of being female. So, skin color, sexuality, and gender are some of the main things that people discriminate against others for. So, why do people discriminate against others for things that are just not in their control? Well, one of the main reasons for discrimination these days is just because of misinformation. Misinformation is defined as false information that is spread regardless of whether there is intent to mislead, from dictionary.com. An example of misinformation is how an overwhelming number of Americans, regardless of sexuality or gender identity, believe LGBTQ people have federal protection against discrimination that are, in reality, not available to them. An example of this is how 78% of non-LGBTQ respondents and 70% of LGBTQ respondents believe it is illegal to deny employee benefits, pension, or health insurance to an employee's same-sex partner. Another problem could simply just be the society or world that we live in. Even if we are better than we were in the past, we're still not anywhere near perfect. A recent example of this is how blacks and Latinos were more likely than whites to work in jobs that, during the COVID-19 pandemic, put their health, lives in great danger. This, combined with the problems lower-income persons and disproportionately, blacks and Latinos were less likely to have adequate health care at the time. Just the idea of working during the pandemic, especially early on in the pandemic, without good health care is honestly terrible and something that shouldn't be a problem when the next pandemic starts. So, honestly, how do you even try to fix problems like misinformation of the masses and how the masses, in a form of a society, treat people? Well, I feel like the best way to stop the threat of misinformation is for everyone to just be more open-minded to new information and to try and be better informed overall. If you are better informed, then you can inform someone else so that they can inform someone else, making a great chain reaction of better informed people. Sometimes even just a simple conversation can be a powerful thing. And when it comes to trying to fix society in the world that we live in, especially when it comes to the United States, the best thing you can do is support organizations that are fighting for a better tomorrow. Right now, there are plenty of amazing organizations to support, such as Black Lives Matter, Human Rights Campaign, National LGBTQ Task Force, UN Women, National Organization of Women, Georgia Equality, and many, 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 many more. Supporting these organizations could and probably will lead to everyone having a better, safer, and more equal world. And that's all we could ever want. Thank you so much for listening to me talk about discrimination, and I hope you enjoyed. Goodbye.